In order to understand the following video, you must first have the capacity to comprehend that the words you are hearing are not actual words at all, but rather pre-recorded sounds that have been reconstructed by this device to emit sound waves to be deflected by your eardrums and interpreted by your brain as actual words, and thereby allowing you, as the observer, to hear the message being transmitted via airwaves from one being to another. It should also be noted that not everyone sees things the same way. Now, let me begin by first just asking you a simple question. Why do so many people still spell banana with two N's together? Clearly, any dictionary shows that banana is spelled B-A-N-A-N-A. Yet so many people seem to remember it being spelled B-A-N-N-A-N-A. Over and over again, people spell it with two N's together, giving a total of three N's in the word. Our current history would show that banana has never been spelled with the extra N. So ask yourself, why is this the case? No one is remembering it as B-A-N-A-N-N-A, but only as B-A-N-N-A-N-A. So even though all these people are wrong according to present history, they are all remembering it the same. Now, how do you spell it yourself? Now, the spelling of banana is not the point of this video. Rather, I would like to draw your attention to the color. I was looking at my last video and was pondering a clip that had, what else? Bananas. In a picture on the wall. The dialogue or narration had said, looking at every aspect of evidence, uncovering every hidden clue. Looking at every aspect of evidence, uncovering every hidden clue. I thought about that. I asked myself, why the bananas? I thought perhaps slippery floor with the shoes she was wearing. Then I realized it was about the deception itself. You see, the color yellow, in reality, cannot be viewed on the screen you are watching. Let me explain before you start shouting, but I can see yellow! The screen you are watching only produces three colors, red, green, and blue. This is often referred to as the RGB. It is possible, if you have the newest of technology, that a four-color screen, which actually does produce a yellow, could be used to view this video. However, you still would only see the red, green, and blue because this video was made using only the RGB colors. Now, it is important to the point of this video that you understand how we see color. The normal human eye takes in the light waves that are reflected off of the objects we see. Let me make a quick interjection here. No, this is not Egyptian sun worship or New World Order Illuminati garbage. However, it is interesting to note, while searching for a teaching diagram to explain the reflection of color, everyone that I found used the sun as the light source, with the rays of light bouncing back to the eye. Even the most basic, such as this one, contains the subliminal symbolisms found throughout history conveying illumination by the sun worship, the pyramid, and the eye. Aren't you glad I didn't use this one, which seems even more blatant about the symbolisms? I guess I did use it, didn't I? Anyway, you get the idea. So I made my own. It's a bit crude, but it will work to make the point and maybe alleviate any anxieties about sun worship. It's a slippery slope when dealing with bananas. So the colors of light are reflected off the object to the eye. The eye has three type cone cells which act as receptors to take in and decipher between the three colors, red, green, and blue. The cones are referred to simply as the LMS, long, medium, and short. Bunched together with rod cells, which add the light and the dark, these give the information from the light hitting the retina and pass it on through the optic nerve to the brain. It's a bit more complicated, but that's the basics so you understand this video. You can do your own research in depth on the human eyes and ears, as some people have dedicated their entire lives to such studies, and the facts are truly amazing. Now, back to our yellow banana. In real life, or rather in person, you can perceive yellow, real yellow, as a reflected color. But watching this video, you are in reality only seeing condensed variations of red and green in such a way that your brain is actually fooled into believing you are seeing yellow. So what's the point, you're thinking? The point is that our brains are actually quite easy to trick because of our own senses. Do you remember not long ago when this dress was the hottest topic on all social media and even mainstream news? Why do you think that was? What kind of test was being run? Why did half the population claim to see it one way while the other half seen it the other way? And who was keeping score? In a society that boasts of intelligence and sophistication, why or even how would the color of a dress be such a topic? That is just food for thought. Again, another interjection, not the point of the video. People have said things like seeing is believing or a picture is worth 1,000 words. And to a point, those statements are true. But ultimately, it comes down to one's perspective. For example, which way is this window facing? To the right or to the left? Both ways are actually correct, even though in reality it is impossible. Do you remember this old test? Which orange circle is the biggest? Well, most everyone knows that the two are actually the same size. When the surrounding distractions are removed, then it's plain to see, and even easier when the two are compared side by side. We can take those same circles, multiply them, add a new dot in the center, and now they become the distraction, causing the same blue dot to already appear larger on its own. Add in more distraction, and the effect becomes even more so. So, for hanging with me so far, we'll throw some stems on here for you and remind you to stop and smell the flowers. Now, let's just recap so far to make sure we're on the same page. First, you are not actually hearing my voice, but rather a reproduction created by a machine via frequencies of sound waves delivered to your hearing. Second, the things that you are observing in this video are in reality not what you are seeing, but instead are images created by a machine and delivered to your sight. Simply put, everything you witness on a screen is already tricking your brain into believing something that isn't real. In other words, by your own eyes and ears, your mind is being deceived through modern technology without you even realizing it. So now maybe you're thinking, probably not the best info to be dropping if you want someone to watch your video. I know, right? I'm not saying you can't glean good information from what you watch. Even a poison cupcake still contains some sugar. In other words, most every deception contains some truth, or else you wouldn't fall for it so easily in the first place. Take a look at the following diagram. Read the chart and say the colors, but not the words. You can pause if you like, as we have to continue forward, but this is a fun test to play with your friends. Now this brings us to the left-right brain paradigm. It has been argued and debated and proven on different levels that although both hemispheres of our brains work together, each side attributes to different functions. The left is often referred to as the scientific side, while the right is esteemed as the artistic half. The left is the analytical, trying to reason by logic, hard facts, and strict focus, while the right is creative, using faith, imagination, and emotion to take on the bigger picture view of reality. One might even argue that the left brain is more material, carnal, and organized, fleshly, while the right is more expressive, spiritual, and free. Take a look at this silhouette for a minute. Is she spinning to the left or to the right? Both answers are correct, but it gives you an insight to which side of your brain is dominant. Many people can see her spinning both ways, simply switching her direction in their mind. It is a good brain exercise. Now, We can't stay on this, as time too is constantly moving, and death being the only pause. We need to get through this before you or I die. In reality, I may already be dead while you're watching this. Look at it this way, and it may help you to see it both ways. Not something to lose sleep over, just a brain exercise. Now, this particular visual is deceptive for a couple of reasons. First, we already know that the colors are not true pink and yellow. And secondly, even though the shape in the middle appears to be slowly moving, in reality it's not moving at all. You can pause and the still shot will still appear to spin. My family likes this one the best. Again, nothing is moving except your eyes. If you can focus on one particular point, you can actually stop the movement. Your eyes are bouncing around trying to take in all the information, and your brain is convinced that what it sees is actually moving, when in reality, nothing's moving at all. Let's change gears, as some of these can give you a headache. Consider all that your mind is actually going through and doing while you drive a car. Your senses are alert to the sounds of traffic, honking car horns, screeching brakes, loud mufflers, perhaps even the car radio or a talking passenger. Add in the smells of exhaust, burning rubber, fast food restaurants, and the aroma inside your own car. Your hands and your feet working simultaneously to steer, brake, and accelerate. Your neck turning to give you a wider vision. All of this while your eyes are constantly moving over everything from road signs, pedestrians, other cars, stoplights, advertisements, speedometer, on and on. While your brain sorts out these hundreds, if not thousands, of different stimuli, allowing all these sensory functions, and continues to keep your heart beating, your lungs breathing, and even alert you to scratch that itch on the side of your face. Not to mention the whole time remembering your destination and how to get there, and even mumbling something about that guy that cut you off in a truck. Just then, a girl chasing a pink ball is in the road in front of your car. You hit the brakes just to realize this too is only a deception. Your mind is an amazing thing, and the battle to control you by controlling your mind is waged every day on levels that most people cannot even begin to comprehend. A wise old friend used to say, "Let me ride a bike for a minute." And what he meant was, let me sidetrack here or make another interjection pertaining to the main point. So hang on for this final bike ride, it could get bumpy. I had mentioned earlier about all the distractions and how they keep you from seeing the reality. Everything from the music you hear to the screens you watch, creating a technological web of deception designed to keep you entangled in a matrix of lies and confusion. You're programmed what to eat, what to wear, what is cool or hip, what is in or out, where to go and what to do, and even what to think and what to believe. And amazingly enough, all of it by your own choosing. Since I mentioned Matrix, I guess that's where we'll begin our ride. First of all, let's clear a couple of things. We're not talking about Matrix synthesizers or soundboards, nor are we talking about the Matrix hair care and salon supplies. We won't be referring to the Matrix line of beauty aids and makeup, even though I could probably use some help in the beauty department. And we won't be talking about Matrix International or the Matrix Medical Group. One definition for matrix is the thin membrane between the skin and the muscle. Hunters and medical personnel know enough about that, so it too will be left out of this discussion. We will touch on three forms of matrix, being briefly the movie, which is fiction, the societal concept, which is deception, and of course the actual meaning, which is reality. Now, the movie made popular starring Keanu Reeves takes people on a journey into the idea that we as humans are merely living in a kind of simulation, and what we believe to be real is in fact not real at all. The Matrix movie themselves do borderline subliminally between truth and fiction. A famous line from one of the main characters sums up the concept quite well. The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. Riding a bicycle here, I told you it would be a bumpy ride. Do you remember in this video, just before running over the little girl with the pink ball, we were following a red car? Without going back, do you remember if that red car turned right or left? Not important really. The red car just made me think about this scene where the characters pass a woman in red and she really stood out, much like the red car, and created what else? A distraction.
Understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?
When I think of the woman in red, I'm reminded of the movie from 1984 titled The Woman in Red, starring Kelly LeBrock and none other than Gene Wilder. He was a well-known actor and just recently passed away, many think for the second or third time. You know how Hollywood rumors are. One of the movies he was well known for was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I worked at a chocolate factory once. Nothing like the movie. Johnny Depp later played the role of Willy Wonka as well. This of course reminds me of the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, with the top hats, which incidentally Johnny Depp played that role as well. With Alice in Wonderland, one can't help but recall the White Rabbit, whether in red or blue. I prefer the blue. But that takes us right back to The Matrix, because the movie itself makes many references to Alice in Wonderland, beginning with a question: how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Which of course brings the memory of a famous statement accredited to Buddha. There are only two mistakes one can make along the road to truth: not starting and not going all the way. So do you see how the bicycle trip works? And we've only made one lap. By the way, the red car turned right. Red is also the color of one of the book covers of a novel I mentioned earlier without acknowledging it, when I spoke of The Woman in Red coming out in 1984. 1984, which is a very popular title written by George Orwell, and it's where we get the term Big Brother is watching you, which reminds me of another novel, V5F, written by Mike Goldman, which makes statements like nothing to hide, nothing to fear. Now, where have we heard that before? Speaking of George Orwell, I said one of the book covers for 1984 was red. It has actually been released with at least 42 different covers. It wouldn't be right to mention 1984 and not make reference to his other well-known novel, Animal Farm, where all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, if you know what I mean. Speaking of Animal Farm, I'm again reminded of the rabbit. And thus we are back to the Matrix, where Neo is told to follow the White Rabbit. Again, throwing us back to Alice in Wonderland and wondering why it is that the White Rabbit always seems to have something to do with time, which opens many trails, and thus why following the White Rabbit can take you in directions you may not have considered. First, simply, we can look at what is called the White Rabbit Project. Just going to hit this briefly. Now, the White Rabbit Project is not to be confused with the new release by Netflix, which is just to mislead the public away from reality, but rather it's an international collaboration using White Rabbit, a sub-nanosecond synchronization for embedded systems. These are dedicated synchronization systems based on the time codes, PPS signals, and or reference frequencies working through Ethernet-based synchronization protocols. The White Rabbit Project boasts of many features and applications, including telecommunications, high-energy physics, and geopositioning, just to mention a few.
Just one other thing you can look at on the White Rabbit Project. I just pulled this up on the Wikipedia. It's interesting. White Rabbit is the name of a collaborative project including CERN, GSI, Humboldt Center for Heavy Ion Research, and you can go on down and check out their site and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, this is stuff you can look up on your own. Sorry about bouncing in. I'm trying to use my left hand and right hand at the same time here. Well, White Rabbit applications and all that kind of stuff. It's a timing network, so there's always about the timing, the White Rabbit timing. And you can go over here and see at CERN, it's a White Rabbit was used for the new control system of the injector chain. You can go to their actual site. Thought it was interesting. Up here it's White Rabbit. It's www.ohwr.org. Projects White Rabbit. Under the news, I went under that. And I guess the Spanish government's the ones that actually paid for the project originally. Anyway, real quick, where was I going to show you picking up good vibrations in CERN bulletin in preparation. This was on 15 December 2015 in preparation for civil engineering work at LHC. At CERN, vibration measurements were carried out at the LHC's point 1 last month. These measurements helped evaluate how civil engineering work, geophone sensors to measure vibrations in the ground were placed around the vibration sources at the surface, linked to underground geophones using LHC White Rabbit synchronization network. And this allowed the team to look at the effects of vibrations at the same time. Again, it's used this the White Rabbit thing. You can go to the overview. It tells you what it is. There's more information to the wiki. It's a universal timing endpoint based on the White Rabbit deal. The White Rabbit stuff. You can look at news, documents, things like that, activity. But anyway, so there is, the White Rabbit project. You can look into that. Again, this is stuff you can do on your own, okay? The White Rabbit switch was one of the first things that they come up with. Again, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, then go to that one, www.ohwr.org, and go in and look under the projects or whatever it is you want to look at. But that's the White Rabbit project.
So this, of course, takes our bike ride briefly over to CERN. Now, it's only fair, since we've mentioned the Mad Hatter and the White Rabbit, to give attention to Alice. Not Alice from Lewis Carroll's 1865 novel, but rather the namesake used for one of the main project experiments at CERN. Now, this looks like something right out of Alice in Wonderland, but it's actually an early blueprint drawing of the Alice detector. While CERN boasts of many things to the public, the same as NASA does, there are still questions to some of the practices that actually take place. One of the main topics, in keeping with the point of this video, is more in the heart of the Alice detector. A little or large something they call the TPC. Now, that's not to be confused with the golfing TPC, which is actually the Tournament Players Club, like the TPC clubhouse located here at Sawgrass. Instead, we are talking about the TPC as in the Time Projection Chamber. What I did find interesting here is the terminology used for the star time projection chamber, because supposedly they're looking to create stars or how they were created or whatever. Anyway, I also found the LFTPC, gates open, gates closed, interesting. Real quick note before moving on. Our tax dollars are hard at work at Fermilab as well. This is a time projection chamber prototype I stumbled across. This particular one is a 35-ton TPC through the U.S. Department of Energy at the Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory. You heard me correct. You find it on this government website, vms.fnal.gov. Probably not a smart place to be looking around, but that's a government Fermilab time projection chamber that you can look into on your own. Also found this one interesting as well, the Dark Side 50 time projection chamber by Fermilab, located in a laboratory in Italy. Now, back to Alice for a second. I had mentioned the star TPC, and it made the word leptons stand out. Now, the idea of time manipulation or time projection makes me think of times being changed, and since I'm still chasing the White Rabbit, I gotta look to the heavens at Lepus, which is the constellation of the Rabbit, just under Orion. Now, when considering the constellations, I can't help but remember in 2011, under the leadership of Obama at the time, a 13th sign was added to the zodiac. actually changing everybody's birth sign for the most part. Talk about changing times and laws. Well, now Ophiuchus, the snake handler, is the new guy on the block. Interesting, really, when you look into the symbolisms and the facts, and why now, after all these centuries, Ophiuchus, the serpent handler. Since we're into the stars now, I guess we can bid farewell for now to the white rabbit, seen here in a painting from 1525 by the artist Tiziano. Many just call him Titan. The painting is titled The Madonna of the Rabbit. A side note as I air up the tires here, the rabbit for centuries has been a symbol for fertility, and one of the reasons we see rabbits and eggs at Easter, which is really slang for the goddess Esther, or Ishtar, who was worshipped as the pagan goddess of the night, and of course, you guessed it, fertility. Just like Venus, Astarte, Ashtaroth, Inanna, and of course Lilith. Since we're pointing out goddesses, here is a Mayan moon goddess with her bunny rabbit, and of course the rabbit-headed goddess from Egypt, Winut. Rabbits show up a lot around Egyptian gods. Here's a triad statue depicting Hernom, Hathor, and Makara. You can see the rabbit in a close-up, and of course in hieroglyphs in numerous places. Oh, and how could we forget Shiva, which stands outside of CERN? Okay, back on the bike and briefly back to the star research at CERN. Inside the time prediction chamber, we have all these seemingly mirrored walls. Why the mirrors? Which reminds us of the looking glass of Alice in Wonderland. Through the Looking Glass, the companion story to the original Alice in Wonderland, where Alice finds herself falling through the mirror as well as time back into Wonderland, which takes us once again to the Matrix, which also reaches through the veil of the Looking Glass. Which leads me to ask the question, why do people cover the mirrors in their homes when someone dies? It's an old tradition, and there may be more to it than you think, but you can take that bike ride on your own. Now, due to much of the hype in society, people have equated the movie Matrix to reality in our everyday lives, drawing parallels to the similarities, flesh versus spirit, being in a prison without bars, people realizing that most of what we are told are lies and deceptions, control grids set everywhere to constantly monitor what we do and what we say, where we go, continuous programming in one form or another, and technology growing faster than the human mind can comprehend. Add in scenarios like chemtrails, weather manipulation, bioengineered food sources, vaccines, shoddy education, lack of jobs and income, poor health systems, and on and on. Touch it all off with manufactured race wars, religious differences, hate propaganda. Add in debates over flat earth or supernatural quantum changes, Mandela effects, and the everyday martial law on standby, or ever ready. There's many others, but for a cherry on top, the constant threat of war and terrorism. So everyone cries out, escape the Matrix, break free of the Matrix. The system has you. Open your mind and be free of the Matrix. Get out of the Matrix. Wake up and come out of the Matrix. Leave the Matrix. Atheists say it. Agnostics say it. Truthers say it. Books have been written on it. How to get free from the Matrix. And now I tell you a truth, though many of you do not want to hear. The number one definition for Matrix is womb. And it shows up about 5 times now in the King James Version. Many think it wasn't there originally. In essence, all these people are screaming you must escape the womb that has you bound. To leave the womb is to be born. But we've already been born. How is it possible to enter our mother's womb a second time? No, we've been born of the flesh. The water broke and we are born. This is a new birth, a spiritual birth, not a flesh, a rebirth. Everyone, in essence, is saying we must be born again in order to see and understand the truth. This is exactly what Yeshua, Jesus, said in John in chapter 3. In verse 3 says, Jesus answered and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. And Nicodemus said unto him, How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb and be born? And Jesus answered, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. And that which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Marvel not that I said unto thee, Ye must be born again. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh, and whither it goeth. So is every one that is born of the Spirit. He later goes on to say that chapter 3 and verse 16, For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So everybody's saying we got to escape the matrix. We got to be reborn or born again. Just like Christ had said, we must be born again to inherit the kingdom of God. We must be born again to understand and see the truth. Now, do you understand? Break free of the constant deception. Stop lying to your mind. Repent and be born again.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the bicycle ride and understand that now. Y'all keep me in your prayers, will you? Take care of yourself, be aware. Always watchful. It's Photo Helix. I'm out. To our next bike ride, right? Y'all have a good one.